Well, okay. Let's just pick it up where we left it off last time. We're in Jude, verse 22, and we talked about this first phrase, be merciful to those who doubt. Now, there's a subtle difference between doubt and disbelief or unbelief. I think it kind of goes this way: there is doubt, there is unbelief, and there is disbelief. Doubt has to do with it's your intellect, but it's also connected to your emotions. When I doubt the trustworthiness of someone, there is an emotion attached to that doubt, right? Uh, Doubt is I'm not yet convinced. Okay, then there's unbelief. One of my favorite verses, and that sounds stupid, but one of my favorite verses in the New Testament is from the story when Jesus came down after the transfiguration. He came down off the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and the other apostles, and a father greeted Jesus. But it wasn't like oh, hey, glad you're back greeting. It's, hey, you got to take care of this. There was a father whose son was possessed of a demon. The demon continually tried to harm. It often threw him into the water. It threw him into the fire. Our modern terminology would be it threw him into convulsions. And not even going to get into the whole thing of, all right, what they thought was demons may only have been a medical condition. I'm not going there, and I'm just going to look at it the way the Bible does, that this was a demonic demonstration. That this was a demonic tormenting of a boy. The disciples said, we tried to cast it out, but we can't. Well, actually, the dad said, your disciples tried to cast this demon out, but they couldn't do it. And Jesus said, do you think I can? And here's what the dad said: I believe, help my unbelief. That often characterizes my heart and mind. Oh God, I believe, but there's this unbelief in me. It's not that I don't want to believe, it's that I don't yet believe. Help me with this. Well, Jesus answered his prayer and he healed the boy. So there's doubt, unbelief, and then disbelief. This is where it's no longer I'm unconvinced. It's not I have some belief, but I'm not all the way there. This is I don't believe. It's hogwash. It's poppycock. Sorry for my language. This unbelief, that's a whole different thing. And we know people in all three of these categories. And from time to time, we may find ourselves in all three of these categories. Jude writes, be merciful to those who doubt. And then he goes on in verse 22, save others by snatching them from the fire. Now, this is symbolic. He's not talking about, he's not addressing firefighters. There are lots of firefighters who saved lots of lives by literally snatching them out of the fire. But what Jude is talking about is what ancient, well, and not even all that ancient, but writers from many years ago would have called save them from perdition. This has to do, the fire has to do with the final judgment. John talks about a lake of fire in the book of Revelation, into which Satan and his angels will be thrown And at the final close, the last page of the last chapter of the conflict between good and evil, snatch people, save others by snatching them from the fire. How do I snatch someone from the fire? Well, there's not just one way to do that, but I think it kind of comes down to, there was a popular TV docudrama, which I have a problem with TV docudramas because although they are sort of a documentary, they're certainly a drama, but they're actually scripted. And this particular one was about recovery. It was about intervention. Drug addicts and alcoholics this was a scripted reenactment of intervention that was done on behalf of these addicts and alcoholics. Now, an intervention, if you're unfamiliar with this, it has to do with people who love and care about this person who is trapped in an addiction. They confront the individual and do everything they can to urge, push, shove that person toward getting appropriate help. The boss shows up, their spouse or significant other, their children, their best friend, these people, the important people who's when the addict is in their right mind, these people matter to them. But bear in mind, when an addict is not in their right mind, only one thing really matters to them, and that's the next drink, the next hit, the next snort, the next whatever. What an intervention does is confronts this person with their behavior and their choices. You don't generally say, you've gone off the rails here. No. The boss says, hey, here's the thing. You were like 2 hours late to work this time, this day, this day, this day. And on these days, you didn't even show up. And on these particular days when you showed up, it was obvious you were drunk or you were high. The spouse says, on this date, on that date, on that date, and on that date, these are things you did. Often they're acts of violence toward the spouse. See, they get it's almost like a grilling in court. These are highly specific examples of the addict's behavior and the need to change. And then it turns like this. Each of these people, in whatever way, whatever words they would use, the message is, if you don't get help, this relationship is over. The boss says, if you don't get help, you don't have a job with me. The best friend says, dude, if you don't get help, you're cut off. The spouse says, if you don't get help, I'm kicking you out of the house. You'll be on the street. On and on it goes, all the way down the line for everybody in the room. Here's the point. You still have choices. But if you choose to continue the way you're living, then every consequence that we can bring to bear, we turn loose on you. But if you choose rehab, we're behind you 100%. We'll help you get there, and we'll support you as you go through. Well, that to me, when it's done effectively, and oh, by the way, and you will rarely ever find an intervention that happens without thorough preparation. This is not just something you throw together in an afternoon. Or you're sitting around the coffee table and you decide, well, let's just try this. Don't do that. It's not going to work. Okay. Is that what Jude's talking about? No. Now, I think it's roughly a form of what Jude is talking about. Save others, he says, by snatching them from the fire. How do we? All right, an intervention is a form of snatching from the fire. But could it be that there are times when when we're with doubters, I think doubters need the tenderness of mercy. I think that's what Jude's saying. But there are other people who, this is not just about their doubt. This is about their choices and their behaviors, their life. And those people, I think, if you're going to snatch them from the fire, see, their free will doesn't go away. You don't get to choose for them, but you can. Sometimes what I think it comes down to is in the Spirit of Christ, with His mercy, with His grace, but firmly we confront the person with their behavior and do what we can to pull them away from that behavior and set them up to follow Christ. Snatch them from the fire. Not everybody is good at this. A lot of people think that only an apologist, somebody who has studied apologetics, who knows all the answers to all the questions, who can defend the Bible, who can defend God, they're the ones to snatch people from the fire. Maybe. I mean, there's some times when certainly it requires it. But I'll tell you, if I'm going to snatch somebody from the fire, I got to have a close enough relationship that I can get my hands on them. I think it's still set squarely in the context of relationships. Snatch others from the fire. Save them by snatching them from the fire. This is very hard. And when I was a boy, I did a junior life-saving program. And it was really useful. I think even now, although, my brother asked, my body is not very cooperative. But I think if I needed to save someone from drowning in water, I think I remember enough about what I learned in that junior life-saving class to be able to do it. One of the things that was taught is when you're trying to save someone, you may have to take drastic measures to do that. Sometimes drowning people grab whoever is trying to help them. They'll take you to the bottom with them. So sometimes you have to be even harsh so that you can actually save them. I wonder if that sometimes doesn't happen with these people that we snatch from the fire. Sometimes it requires drastic measures and strong language. Sometimes this is maybe sounds like a contradiction, but the tender mercies of God sometimes have to be incredibly firm so that we can snatch others from the fire. Now, my own opinion on this is that people, if I'm going to snatch anybody from the fire, I'm not going to be able to do that by myself. I got to have the intervention of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I can't jump out there and do this, drag them, snatch them, drag them away from the fire and then go, wow, how about that? No. With every move, I am breathing a prayer for God's wisdom, His help, His intervention, as I do what I can to snatch them from the fire. And then he says, to others, show mercy mixed with fear. Well, that's kind of that we have to unpack a little bit. You just can't say it and leave it. And we'll do that next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.